Good day! Paranormal fiction, ladies and gentlemen! The very name conjures up the worst of cringe. Be honest, when I first said the word, you thought of Twilight Dude, or some sort of trashy teen novel featuring a dude named Damien. But thankfully, paranormal fiction does have some good entries, and does have a number of excellent writers. Just what is paranormal fiction, though? Paranormal fiction is a type of fiction wherein you have a more or less normal world, but with monsters, or potentially some type of ghost. Yes, this means Ghostbusters is indeed paranormal fiction, so it's not all angst and sparkly vampires. Enter Larry Correia. He is a writer of the highest order, and his first ever novel was Monster Hunter International. And that is the subject of today's book review. Larry Correia belongs to a stable of writers published by Baen Books. Baen Books primarily publish military science fiction and fantasy works, and are more or less what I like to call Republican science fiction. They feature more Republican themes, such as limited government and individual responsibility, and generally mock the very concept of wokeness. Larry Correia is not really a Republican science fiction writer, however. In fact, he is not partisan at all, and will freely criticize both sides when need be. Monster Hunter International was initially self-published, but became so popular that it was eventually picked up by Baen, and it got its initial popularity through AR15.com. Yes, that is exactly where Correia shilled his novel, and it attracted a massive following due to Correia's highly accurate depiction of firearms and their effects on foul beasts of the night. The audience for the Monster Hunter novels is rather interesting. They are not typical nerds, but rather they are the oft-overlooked gun nerd. People who are as nerdy as the average nerd, but like guns and believe in small government and individual responsibility. Larry Correia himself is very much one of us, and is very active on social media and takes no crap from any SJW. His website is about as entertaining as his novels, and he will riff various articles posted by SJWs as well. Overall, he is a cool dude, and has found his niche amongst a largely untapped market. So now, let's crack open Monster Hunter International and take a look. Monster Hunter International is set in the year of its publication, 2009, and features a world entirely identical to our own, sans one tiny detail. Monsters exist. Which monsters? All of them! Several different power levels of vampire, werewolves, zombies that come in several different flavors, and the Chupacabra, and last but not least, Cthulhu. The average person does not know of this, however, as the governments of the world keep any and all knowledge of monsters suppressed. The novel is told from the first-person perspective of Owen Zastava Pitt. This name is nothing short of epic. He is named after the Owen submachine gun, but for some reason, the writer does not mention that Zastava is a firearms manufacturer in Serbia, maker of the excellent SKS Model 5966. And Pitt, well, sounds cool, and is shared with the weird 90s comic character of the same name. Owen Pitt begins the story as a simple accountant harassed by an asshole boss. Said asshole boss is a werewolf, and said boss attempts to kill and eat Pitt. Since this is a politically independent novel, it is set in Texas, and when Wereboss attempts to eat Pitt, Pitt pulls out a little Smith & Wesson Snubby and empties 5 shots right into Were Lumberg's brain case. As you would expect, all it does is piss off Were Lumberg, and then we get some fighting. Owen here is a bodybuilder on top of being a gun guy. So he begins kicking the crap out of the werewolf and eventually breaks the werewolf's neck. As you expect, all it does is piss him off. Finally, when all seems lost, Pitt knocks the werewolf out of the bloody building to the pavement below. All that does is turn that werewolf into red goo. Felt that, you bastard! Pitt, by this point, is seriously injured, and he passes out from his injuries. The first fight is what really hooked me onto the franchise. Pitt edges into Marty Stu territory, but is still rather relatable. He has a normal job and is a more or less normal guy. He feels panic when his boss turns into a werewolf, but he does not lose his cool and fights and fights until he wins. Other novelists in the Bane stable have tried to make a badass normalish guy before, but sadly they've all pretty much failed as they never felt believable. Owen seems like a guy who could really exist in the real world, and he is quite likable for it. Pitt comes to in a hospital and is threatened by 2 government agents. He is told that if he tests positive for the werewolf virus, he will be killed. As you would expect, Pitt does not. And then the 2 feds threaten him again and say that if he tells anyone, he will also be killed. At the same meeting, a man named Earl Harbinger shows up and gives Pitt a business card with the name Monster Hunter International emblazoned upon it. He also mentions that the feds did not tell Pitt about the PUF, Perpetual Unearthly Forces Fund, a fund set up for hunting monsters. Pitt earned a massive chunk of change for killing the werewolf, but feds being feds didn't tell him about it. The feds, over time, will get a little less antagonistic. The next bit of the novel covers Pitt's recovery. Fighting a werewolf is hard. Eventually, he meets back up with Harbinger and is introduced to a new character, Julie Shackelford. She and Harbinger talk to Pitt about the concept of monsters existing and ask if he will join the organization. Pitt declines, not believing them, but asks if he can go out on a date with Julie, as he is instantly smitten with her. She already has a boyfriend, but agrees so that she can sell the MHI. The date goes well, and Pitt is half convinced and decides to give MHI a try. Since this is a politically independent novel, all of the events take place in the southern U.S., and Southerners in general are held in high regard. MHI is located in the fictional Cazador, Alabama, and is filled with a great many interesting and colorful characters, because you have to be of a flexible mind to survive a monster encounter. Pitt travels to Cazador and is enrolled in the newbie class. While exploring the MHI compound, he finds a wall with silver plaques commemorating the deaths of various hunters, and he notices that the plaques stop in 1995. When he asks about this, he is brushed off. The newbie class goes well, and he shows off his 3-gun shooting skills and can super reload a Remington 870. The major characters that will play major roles throughout the series are introduced in the training segment, and it would take too long to go through them all. But they all share one common thread. They are all down to earth and more or less common but skilled individuals, and they are all quite relatable all around. During the training, Pitt starts getting various visions, and in one vision sees the novel's villain, a mysterious Spanish vampire. Pitt's first battle is on a French cargo ship, and since he is not a Gary Stu, he first gets almost drowned by slipping and falling off the boat. But he is saved by a mysterious figure that talks to him when he is half drowned. When the fighting eventually starts up, Pitt does what he does best and gets to killing, and eventually takes out a Frenchy vampire and spouts off a cool line. After the cargo ship, the main plot begins. MHI and Pitt must stop the Spanish vampire from bringing about the end of the world. I have intentionally left out a bunch of details so as not to spoil the novel. The less you know about it, the more awesome it is to read. And really, ladies and gentlemen, I could go on for 5 more pages about this book, as Correa really did his due diligence in creating a true paranormal novel. His villains are suitably fleshed out, and we even see some of the book through their eyes. The characters are compelling and quite endearing, and Pitt is what Duke Nukem wishes he was. And all told, this is a novel well worth reading, as it is far more advanced than a book about guns and monsters should be. I recommend this to a wide variety of fiction fans, as it has a little something for everyone. And so, I am General Lotz, wishing you good Monster Hunter Vendetta, and good Monster Hunter Try, aka Alpha, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this awesome content.